Are you racing Ironman Canada this year? Well, if so, this is the video for you because in it, two very experienced Ironman U certified coaches are going to talk through exactly what you need to know for the race day course. Not only that, we have an experienced Ironman Canada finisher and Kona qualifier, and that will also help you through and get all the learnings you need to know. So whether it's your first Penticton or you're looking for a PB, stay tuned. Okay. So who are we? My name is Stephen Moody, or Coach Steve. I'm a Dublin-based was a triathlon coach who has been coaching for over 20 years. But a number of athletes have gone to Canada and have had a great time. And I'm delighted to have Wendy Mader here to actually help me talk through this video. As she's not only got finisher experience of the course, but she's taken a load of athletes through this Canadian course. Wendy, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Do you want to tell the crowd a little bit about your background and all and some of the cool stuff you've done in your triathlon career?
Yeah, sure. So I'm entering my 33rd triathlon season. I
Nice.
started in 1992. I did my very first Ironman in 1997 on the Big Island of Hawaii. Kona was my first Ironman because back then you only had to do a half Ironman to qualify for the Ironman. They weren't even called 70.3s back then. And Ironman Canada in Penticton was my second Ironman in 1999 when Ironman North America used to exist. And Ironman North America was I believe it was five races: Coeur d'Alene, California, Canada, Florida, and maybe Hawaii. I could
Cool.
be missing a race in there, but so it was very iconic to have an Ironman North America before World Triathlon Corporation was around and kind of swallowed up all the Ironmans and created the World Triathlon Corporation. And all these Ironmans started happening in Europe and other countries. So what was I, 1999? I'm 26 years old. I went to Canada for my very second Ironman. And it's a very tough course. And back then I didn't have any coaching. I was still kind of naive, but I was young. When you're younger, you kind of get away with stuff, hard courses when you're probably don't quite have the fitness or the strength. But it was definitely iconic, beautiful venue, cool temperatures, and I'm really looking forward to kind of talking through the course with everyone.
Cool. No, it actually sounds like a great, and you did start off. It's a tough course, but I'm glad you highlighted it is actually a beautiful course, and you can see that in some of the pictures and the things we'll talk through again. So let's get onto the course and actually talk through what the guys want to learn about. We I picked up this picture. Now this is probably around when you were doing it, but because we no longer do mass starts, and we'll talk about this. But this just I want people to have a look at. This is where you're going to swim. This is your backdrop. Now this is an old Ironman mass start. We have a rolling start now, but that looks absolutely fabulous. Now we'll talk through the swim course a little bit now, and I'm really interested to hear what hints and tips you'd like to give the people who are doing their first or looking to PB, Wendy. So this is our 2024 swim course. Any thoughts initially that in terms of the water quality, whether it's wetsuit legal, what have you got for us?
Yes. And it's a one loop course and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's no weird turns. Keep the buoys on your left. And it's a rolling start. Back when I did it, it was a mass start, as you saw in that previous pictures, or you keep the buoys on your right. And it was a mass start, and now it's a rolling start, which means you seed yourself in line according to your predicted 2.4 mile swim. And again, I'm based in the United States, so I don't use the metric system. And the water temperature is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which I believe is 21 degrees Celsius.
Yep.
And so chances are high it's going to be wetsuit legal. Wetsuit legal temperatures are under 76.1 degrees Fahrenheit. So chances are high, unless they've had an extremely hot summer like we have here in the United States. I mean, Penticton, Canada's not that far from the United States. And if they've had the hot summer like we have, it could be a little warm. So just prepare yourself in case it's not wetsuit legal. If you do decide to do the swim and it is above 76.1 degrees Fahrenheit, if you decide you want to wear a wetsuit because you're just more comfortable in a wetsuit, then you just start behind and in the back of the pack and you won't be eligible for prizes.
Okay, cool. And what's the water quality like? Is it it's in this lake
Very,
anyhow, so
yeah, it's
there's no
very
waves to worry about. Is it nice
no,
and
it's
clear
very
or?
clean. It's very clean and clear. Kind of a little bit, if you've ever heard of Ironman Lake Placid, Mirror Lake. It's just like that. It's very clear and clean, fresh water, and you won't have any issues with sighting or turbulence. Like it's not going to be wavy
Okay,
or
cool.
anything like that.
And you mentioned about the rolling swim start. So actually, I have a good example of here. This is how you will actually enter the water. As Wendy correctly pointed out, you seed yourself. Like when you arrive on the race day, there'll be like a corral for like under an hour swimmer, under 70 minutes, under 80 minutes, and you seed yourself according to your estimated swim time. And this is how they'll let you in. So they will you'll find these metal gates, and you see the volunteers holding people back there. And what you can't see is every 10 seconds there's a beep and they'll let their arms up and then they'll let in one, two, three, four swimmers at a time. It kind of controls the flow of swimmers into water. It makes it much easier it takes away the big fear of a mass swim start, which a couple of people love, a lot of people don't. So it's a very smooth start to your day. And advice to newbies, as I said, don't put yourself in a higher swim corral because you think you're saving yourself time against cutoffs. All you're doing there is getting in the way of faster, stronger swimmers who will swim over you unapologetically. But also,
Right.
more importantly, you'll lose the ability to draft off someone around the same level. Any advice for your for athletes looking to seed themselves in a swim corral, Wendy?
Yeah, I mean, the benefit is doesn't provide all the arms and legs at the start of a race, kicking and punching you like a mass swim start does. And your race time starts when you enter the water. So don't be anxious about, it's going to take about 30 plus minutes to get, 2,000 plus athletes in the water. So if you're in a later wave, don't worry about that. If the first person starts at 7 a.m. and you don't start till 7:30 or later, you still have 17 hours to finish the course based on when you start. And over the years since I've been doing these wave starts, everyone seems very calm and not worried about anything. I think it's a really kind of safe change that Ironman has made to their swim wave starts.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Feel it encourages a lot more people who would be very. The swim's the most scary part for most newbies.
yeah.
So the fact that they're no longer seeing like a Lanzarote swim start where everybody's piling in or Nice's, these are classic ones, or even that picture at the start, smooth water into the water. And again, it gives people the best chance of actually setting themselves up for a good day.
Yeah, and based on what I've heard, people are pretty honest with seating themselves in the correct way, plus or minus 5 minutes. If you're an hour and a half swimmer, don't go behind an hour swimmer. And if you're an hour and a half swimmer, don't go behind a 2 hour swimmer either.
Yeah.
Go where you think you're going to be for best chances of success.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned sighting. I don't think there's a huge amount to sight in terms of it's basically a horseshoe shape. It looks like what I tell my athletes was actually do aim for the red turn buoys, as in you'll see these guys here. And when we talk about sighting, sighting is when every kind of 6 9 strokes you look up and you're looking at something that's going to be roughly in they'll give you the sense that you're swimming in a straight line. Ideally, it's a stationary object like a lighthouse or a building or something, but you won't have that here. But the red buoys are a good option. And again, one of the favorite ones you'll see at the end is the big black swim arch when you're heading into transition. Any other swim tips you'd offer that you'd give to the guys and girls?
Well, I always think, I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel about alligator eyes when you're sighting. Try not to lift your whole body up when you sight. Sight frequently, especially in the beginning, because there will be bodies in front of you. So just sight frequently to make sure you're on course. There's so much safety craft out there. There's kayaks, there's jet skis for the patrol, lifeguards. And again, Ironman, they don't want anyone to be in distress. They really want everyone to finish and get out of the water safely. So if you do happen to be in distress, hopefully you are wearing your wetsuit. Your wetsuit's going to keep you floating. It's going to keep you safe. The universal sign of distress is taking off that swim cap and waving it to a kayaker if you need help and they're not there immediately. So again, take your time, play it safe. I like to say the Ironman race is not going to be won in the swim. So just take your time and make sure you get out of the swim under 2 minutes and 20 or 2 hours and 20 minutes so you get the opportunity to bike.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've never heard any of my athletes say that they wish they went harder in the swim, as in it's always the opposite way. As in, like the swim is just the start of a long day. Get into it comfortably. Try to draft as much as possible. I also tell my guys as well when they're coming into transition, because you will have been horizontal for the last whatever 90 minutes, 100 minutes. Kick a little bit more aggressively than you would beforehand, because it helps was to get the blood circulation around the body a bit more. So, and don't jump up straight away, because that's when you see the guys come up and all the blood drains from their head down to their legs and they get a bit jelly legs. Take your time coming out of water.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's I think that's some great tips there. We'll talk a little bit about transition here now. So
Yeah,
one
one
sec.
thing I wanted to add, and maybe we're going to go into it, they will have wetsuit. They call them wetsuit peelers. They don't call
Oh
them
yes.
strippers anymore. They didn't have them over the recent years because of COVID, but now they're back into, post-COVID times where they do have wetsuit peelers. And so that's a huge benefit that you will see coming out of the swim. Usually you just like lay on your back and they'll like pull the wetsuit off from you. If, try to unstrap your arms if you have long arms and then get on your back. They'll take it off, they'll hand it to you, and you run to your transition area.
I always feel a little bit cheated in it. This is very much an American thing. There's only one race in Europe I know that has wetsuit, and we call them strippers. We're still a little bit politically incorrect. But we don't, it's only Victoria Gasteiz in France. All the other ones we have to get out of a wetsuit. And I've done Texas, I've done Florida, and I was absolutely, I felt like a rock star coming out, going, yes, someone's taking my wetsuit off because I
Yeah.
traditionally struggle with it. So no, that's a great point as well, and that will help. So we will move on to transition then. Oh, sorry, just a reminder. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes to get the job done. But again, seed yourself correctly, pace yourself well, draft as well, and you'll be able to get under that comfortably. Okay, so next up, transition. So transition, single transition, seems to be in a field that want to talk just to talk us through a little bit, Wendy.
Yeah, so the transition is very close to the swim exit. I know in recent years, a lot of races, sometimes you got to run like a quarter to a half mile. I know in Ironman Florida, God, it felt like a
Yeah.
mile long transition from the ocean, from the Gulf to the bike. But the transition is very close. Everything's pretty, the whole venue is pretty compact. If you're staying at the official hotel, everything's very close. Even if you're staying far away, it's still pretty close, closed in area. That's what makes it such a great venue to do an Ironman. The main thing about transition, you will rack your bike the day before, and put your gear bags, your run gear bag, and your bike gear bag. It'll be all checked in the day before. So when you wake up race morning, if you forget to put anything in your race day bag, they'll allow it race day morning, but that's all done. So you just wake up, do your breakfast, put on your race clothes and go down to the venue. So it makes for a little bit easier time and, in the transition. But make sure race morning you go to your bike, you make sure your tires are pumped up the way you want them to be. Make sure you know your ins and outs, your exits. Make sure you go through exiting the water, entering the bike. Where's your bike? Make sure you go from your bike, where is the exit to the run, so you know how to run out, so you don't get all, you're probably still going to get confused sometimes, like where am I
Yes.
going, and there'll be volunteers to help you, but you should arrive at the venue fairly early, at least 90 minutes, and so you have the time to kind of run through the ins and the outs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I tell my guys as well, don't put food or bike computers on anything, because you'll have access in the morning, and just make sure like you don't want food on the bike the night before, because like it'll take all sorts of critters will start eating it. The bike computer can get knocked off. So and get you sort of arrive early in case something happens, because other people are putting their bikes in. Might knock your derailleur off a little bit. So if you get there early and you have something, you've got 30, 40 minutes to fix it, and that's a lot of time. You mentioned about the transition bags. For those who are new to Ironman and have done a couple of domestic races, Ironman uses a specific transition bag system where they, rather than have everything beside your bike as you would like in your small local race, you have a blue bag and a red bag. Blue bag is from your swim to bike, your red bag is from your bike to run, and you put all the stuff you need in it and you lay it out. Lot people panic a little bit at this, but I've made a little video on it that actually shows and gives you a checklist of what you need to go in your blue bag, what to go to in your red bag. and that makes it easy. But essentially, it's think about whatever you need to go on your bike helmet, your bike shoes, if you're putting on a jacket, etc. If you're doing a change of clothes, and again, we'll talk about the red bag and the in when we come to T2. Question for you, Wendy. As in European races, we have rack systems for the bikes,
Mhm.
where they have you actually hang the blue bag on one on the top and the red bag on the bottom. I've seen in other races in America that they just leave them laid out on the floor. What do they do in Canada?
Canada, I believe they're going to have them hung up
Okay.
on a rack, like you mentioned. I know in Chattanooga, that I believe that was Chattanooga, they had you lime on the grass or in a little corral in the grass. And so when you get out of the swim, get your wetsuit off. If you decide you want the peeler to peel off your wetsuit, you're going to run through a chute, grab your blue bag, go into a changing tent. They're going to have changing tents this year. I think they mentioned they didn't have them over the last recent years because of the COVID thing. So you will be able to go in a women's changing tent, obviously if you're female, and a male changing tent if you're male. And if you're going to change out of your wet clothes and put dry clothes on, you can do anything you want in the changing tent. Don't forget to put on sunscreen. There's volunteers there to help you. It's awesome. And then once you're changed and ready to bike, you will um, hand the bag to the volunteer of your wet gear from the swim, and then you'll run to your bike, re-rack your bike, run to the mount line, mount your bike, and then go off on the bike course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, a key thing there, by the way, is you have to have your helmet on before you touch your bike, because you could actually get a
And
time penalty
strapped.
on that, and helmet
And you have to
strapped.
have it hooked up.
So yeah, and it again, and this backs to Wendy's original point. The key way of getting a good transition is walking the flow the day before, and you'll know what your number bike is, where your rack is, because they're numbered. And you go, okay, well, I'm going to come this way from the swim. Okay, there's my landmark. It's beside that tree or beside that flag. I need to run to there. There's where my bag is. That's the bike out. That's the mount line. As in you have to get the bike across that entire line before you can get on it, and then walk it the way back in because it will feel quite different. Again, this is the dismount line where I do have to get off the bike before I start running, and you cannot take your helmet off until you actually have racked your bike again. You'll pick up your red bag, and we'll talk about it in T2. But again, walking it, making it more comfortable, all good. Okay, cool. Right, so we've done our transition, and now it's time. Oh, actually, just before we go onto the bike, I hope you guys are getting a load out of these really good tips, as in Wendy's giving a load of great information here. It's awesome. We'd love you to follow us on our socials. You can click on subscribe for my YouTube channel. Um, Wendy's way cooler than me. She's all into Instagram, so make sure you check her out and follow her there. And again, just like the video and tell your friends. So, oops, I've just clicked on. I think I'm going to Wendy's. I was going to check out Wendy's Instagram there, but you do that, guys, in your own time. This is still the video. Um, okay, but the bike course.
The bike course
Here
is
we are. Now
one
this
loop.
looks like a it's a testing bike course, isn't it? One loop. Do you want to talk us through some of the key points, Wendy?
Yeah, it's one loop. It's one of the very rare, at least in North America, bike rides that still do one loop. Most of the rides that I know of are two loops. It's one loop. The first maybe 60K is fairly flat. I mean, flat's all relative with a few rollers. And then after about 60K, you start the first major climb. And when I did this in 1999, I mean, I trained in Colorado, but I was still young. I lived in Colorado for 4 years. I thought these climbs would be no problem because I had trained in the mountains of Colorado. And I remember, especially that last climb towards the end, it was so, it was difficult. I was young, naive. I probably didn't have a power meter. I didn't know how to pace anything, but it was definitely challenging. It hailed and rained. I felt like it was about to snow. And
Oh,
so, because you're a little bit at altitude and it's mountainous terrain, there could be some weather that you're going to experience, like rain, sleet, snow, hail, like I did, especially on that last pass because you're going pretty high up. So again, just be prepared, know what the weather predictions are. Go to the pre-race meeting, let the race director tell you if they're predicting any type of weather up the top of these passes. take a look at the views. The views are amazing. Over the course of the 112 miles, there's like 10 lakes. And
Wow.
so I love lakes. I just think lakes and mountains make beautiful scenery. And so take the time to really enjoy what's out there while you're on that bike course.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you make a very important point about the weather. And it also ties into what you should put in your transition bags as well. If you're told it's going to be, there's a chance of kind of sleet and rain, put in a rain jacket or a warm jacket in your blue bag. And if the weather doesn't turn out like look like it's going to be beautiful, you don't have to put that on. So it's better, as I described to my guys, better to be looking at it than for it. And if you come out and it looks like it's going to rain, you go, actually put that rain jacket on because that will be a godsend at the top of this mountain, at the top of this, and also descending
Descending, I
when you're
was
not.
so cold. I was so cold because I wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah, that's the thing is when your heart's not pumping as fast, you're not climbing up. Which when you're just going, your teeth are chattering and you're sort of trying to hold on to the hoods and all the rest. What's the road surface like, Wendy? As in good roads, bad roads,
Yeah, I
potholes?
mean the course has slightly changed, 25 years later, but I listened to a little webinar and they said it's a little bit rough in the beginning and then it's pretty smooth riding pretty much the whole way except for the initial, start of the climb of the course, which is relatively flat.
Okay,
And the course is open to traffic. Ironman's really good though about crossings and holding traffic back if you're going to be passing a car that might be going the other direction. But again, just like anything, you have to pay attention and you have to pay attention and to save yourself. You don't want to rely on a volunteer to be doing their job because they could
yeah.
be distracted as well. So just to pay attention to the traffic on the roads, but ultimately, again, Ironman doesn't want any incidents to happen. They're going to keep it as safe as they can.
Yeah, and there's also key about communicating as well, communicating with your other athletes as well as other competitors as well. As in, if you're overtaking someone, if said, look, like I'm all about talking a lot on the bike. Well, I'm all about talking all the time, to be honest. But making sure you're talking to athletes if you're overtaking, even just offer encouragement as well. Everyone's out there like putting in their hard slog, and again, just communicating with volunteers, listening to what they're saying this is not a time where you drift off for 5, 6 hours. This is time you have to be 100% tuned in, especially on this course when there's going to be climbs and some of these descents are going to be, there's going to get some good speeds coming down them. Um, in terms of aid stations, I checked out and I'll show my little bananas. There's one roughly around every um 20 kilometers. What do you advise your athletes in terms of when you're coaching them for an Ironman in terms of nutrition?
Well, I'm someone that can rely on the nutrition offered on the course. I start with my own nutrition. I can rely on whatever hydration solution that is offered on the course. Some of my athletes can't, so they'll carry like a powder, either in a water bottle or in a pack somewhere on their body, and they'll like pull over and grab like water. They'll pull over and stop and pour whatever powder mix into their water bottle. I also advise just take it slow. I mean, slowing down may cost you a couple seconds, but slow down and make sure you get the aid that you need. Like when you're trying to grab the water bottle from a volunteer, you don't want the volunteer to get hurt because you're grabbing the water bottle and going too fast. And so slow down, be careful of the trash, water bottles on the ground, water bottle caps within that aid zone because you don't want to wipe out because you hit a water bottle cap because
Yeah.
it could get messy in there. And then don't litter. There's plenty of space in those aid stations where you can throw your trash away, where you don't have to throw your trash a mile after the aid stations. Because if they see you littering, I don't know if it's a
No,
disqualification or
it's
penalty.
disqualification and rightly
Disqualification,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's plenty of time. Just be prepared. You every 20 kilometers, for me, every 20 kilometers, okay, I better be done with this water bottle so I can toss my bottle and grab a fresh one, a cold one, one that's going to have a little bit of flavor. And so I tend to, even if my water bottle's half empty, I'll still toss it to get a full one,
Yeah.
just to always have aid with me. I never pass up an aid station. And sometimes if it's warm, it's just to pour the water over my head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about aid station in a second, but in terms of the cutoff times, when you have 10.5 hours to get your swim, your T1, and your bike done. Um, but again, as I said, if you pace that right, if you keep on top, as Wendy said, never miss an aid station, keep on top of your fueling, keep on top of your hydration, you should be fine. Um,
One thing I wanted to mention with
yep.
aid stations is there's a special needs bag, and in your a lot of athletes in their special needs bag that they get around the halfway mark, 100 kilometer or so mark. Um, you can put anything, you can put a jacket. If you know it's going to rain, put a jacket in your special needs bag. If you have special food that you want in your special needs bag, for me, it's always like a peanut butter type of bagel or sandwich or cookies or something that I really like to eat that's really satisfying in my special needs bag. And just know whatever you put in your, oh, and I'll put a CO2 cartridge and a tube in my special needs bag in case I get a flat and I need extra. You're not going to get it back.
Yeah, they all get chucked. No, absolutely. And talking about, was it the aid stations? You mentioned it there a little bit. So this is the typical flow of an aid station in North America. As Wendy correctly pointed out, the only time you can litter or you can chuck stuff is at the beginning. That's when you have the half empty bottle, you chuck it, and at the end. So you'll have bottles with the volunteers handing out bottles. You'll have mortal hydration, which is on the course now for North America. You'll have food, they'll have bananas, they'll have energy bars, they'll have Morton gels, mortal hydration again, and water. So don't panic if you miss the first water bottle. And whether you decide to actually come to a complete stop or you actually roll through and grab the bottles, aid stations are, there's an art in it. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But as I said, these are, you've got 25, 45, 65, 105, 125, la la la, roughly every 25 kilometers. And as Wendy correctly said, don't miss up an opportunity to top up on water, even if it's just, if it's a hot day, pouring water down the back of your neck, keep your core temperature down. And then, as I said, there's different ways of approaching it. You can completely stop at an aid station if you want to, but there's key things you need to do. Like if you are pulling in, you need to tell athletes you're doing that so you don't cause an accident. Um, so I go through that in the video, but with a video in the comments below. But there's lots of, and there's demos from pros on how to do it, etc. So that's, but again, aid stations getting it right on the day is the difference between finishing an Ironman and DNFing in an Ironman, because you are completely reliant on keeping your glycogen stores up, fueling, keeping your core temperature down, and this is what the aid sessions are for. Um, and also um, as Wendy correctly pointed out, there's our special needs bags. But they're slightly different to aid stations, as in you can roll through all the aid stations. If you're good and skilled at, you can roll straight through. But with the special needs bags, you have to stop because they're numbered and they have to find your bag. So you pull in. But good news is there's typically portaloos there as well, so you can take a chance to go to the toilet, clear it, and sort of stretch out the legs, etc. Anything else on aid stations, Wendy? We are back to our transitions again, single transition. I love this picture. As you said, it's absolutely stunning. Like this is picturesque. Um, this time we're coming in and we are going for our red bag, which is our bike to run bag. What hints and tips do you give to your guys for transition two, Wendy?
So again, as you're approaching the end of the bike ride, put your gear in an easier gear, spin out your legs, get them ready for like the run cadence that you want to run. Get your heart rate a little bit down if you can. Slow down as you go to the dismount line. There's no reason to have an accident at that dismount line. I've seen it too many times. Dismount at the dismount line, and in this race, you will hand your bike to a volunteer.
Oh,
So
bike
you don't
catchers.
even have to
Again,
re-rack your
you
bike.
Americans are spoiled. We don't have
So
that.
it's awesome. The volunteer, just like in Kona, the
Nice.
volunteer gets your bike. So all you have to do is run through the chute. I don't recall how long it is. You'll go through like a tent, grab your red bag, which has all your running gear in it, go into the changing tent and take off anything you plan to take off, put on anything you plan to put on. Obviously, your running shoes, a visor or hat, sunglasses, reapply sunscreen. A lot of times now that COVID's, kind of done, the volunteers can apply sunscreen on you now. If not, be prepared to do it yourself. And then you put all your biking gear in that red bag, give it to the volunteer, and you head out on the marathon course.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, and those bags you pick up at the end, by the way, that when you come to the bike, they're there for you, so don't worry about that. No, I agree completely. And again, it comes back to our familiarization. When you've walked the course, you know where your red bag is, where the changing tent is. And as I tell my guys, as I said, nothing good happens in transition two. Do get in and get out, because the minute you sit down, you start thinking about it, it becomes quite of a marathon to run. And I've done like that was a tough bike ride. I've had an epic swim. That was a tough bike and a marathon. You start now, just get moving. If you want to think about it, think it while you're moving and running and jogging
Forward,
and
yeah.
getting to that first aid station. That will always help. Cool. All right. And it should be a quick transition too with the bike catchers. As I said, very jealous of you Americans. Okay, so onto the run course. Here we have it. So talk us through the run course. It seems to be, was it two loops, mainly in the city?
Yeah,
Um,
it's mainly two loops, very spectator friendly. I believe there's a place where your friends and family can see you 4 times.
I'd say
As
there.
you exit transition, you're going to run up the biggest climb of the day. Again, over the course of a marathon, there's only 238 meters of elevation gain over 26 miles. So I would call this a fairly flat course.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And you're going to do the first like 10K, you're going to do 5K out, 5K slightly uphill, rolling uphill, and then a 5K slightly rolling downhill in that, as you see that yellow line. I believe it's the yellow line. But anyways,
Oh yeah, sorry.
there's enough little rollers that keep it interesting. For me, I prefer rollers over a completely flat course because you start to use a little bit different muscle groups as you're going up, as you're going down. But there's nothing that's going to be strenuous after that little climb in the beginning. And
Yeah,
because there's out and back loops, there's plenty of people, volunteers, friends and family that can see you along various locations.
yeah, no, it looks like an look. Yeah, aside from this little bit at the far, which actually is not a bad place to have a bit of a hill, because I tell all my athletes, do not try to set a PB for your first 5K or your 10K of a marathon, because you will. There is that epic rush. I'm two-thirds of the way there. I was most nervous about the swim. The bike was, I was nipping nerves off. Now it's just a marathon, and they can start off a bit too quick and then pay for it later on. Um, but so this might just put some manners on them, ease them into it. There's also a load of aid stations. What's your advice for your guys in terms of fueling for the marathon?
So again, just like the bike, I don't pass up an aid station. Personally, I like every aid station. I'll grab water, whether I drink it or pour it on my head or my body somewhere. Every other aid station, I'll do the energy drink. It used to be Gatorade, which I adore. And then every other aid station, I'll do a pretzel or two, a couple pretzels. So I just rely on the pretzels and the Gatorade and the water during the course of the marathon. Again, don't pass up any opportunity to grab something to either drink or cool you off. I think is really important. Whatever you plan to do, make sure you have a plan. Don't just
Yes.
randomly wing it. Like my first my first Ironman in 1997, I, no, I didn't know anything about nutrition. I asked my friend when I got there. I actually had my first goo, back then it was goo, at mile 2 of my very first marathon,
Oh
and it
God.
worked. And I had goo for years and years and years, and then I got sick of goo and I had to change my plan. But whatever you do, have a plan and have a plan B and C
Yeah.
because I've had events where I've trained with a certain product and then race day, I'm like, oh my God, I can't tolerate that product. I overdid it in training. What am I going to do? Thankfully, I have a pretty solid iron gut that I can do something new on race day and it's never negatively impacted me. Not everyone is like that. So have your plan A, but then also have the backup plan B and C in case you're not tolerating the plan A nutrition component.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you. And again, I have a slightly unusual philosophy about I tell my guys, do not never miss an aid station. And again, that's all about fueling and keeping the body, because you're burning calories, and you've already burnt a lot of calories from the bike as well. And it also, another important point is it's important to keep fueling even the last 30, 40K of the bike because then you're actually still keeping your glycogen levels topped up for the run. But I also say to them, look, you've spent an awful lot of money on Ironman. This is your chance to get your money back. There's no
Before,
point in was it carrying Morton gels with you or anything else unless it's something you can't get on course. Because look at it, there's an aid station roughly around every kind of 2, 3 kilometers. You just run, fill your boots, and all the rest. And it's I said it as a challenging life goal that I'm going to earn back my entry fee in Morton Gels at some point. So I don't think
uh-huh.
it's actually humanly possible, but making sure you get all the fuel on board, even if you're feeling quite full and you're just rinsing out your mouth with some isotonic drink or Coke and all the rest, that will help stimulate the brain as well. The other thing I tell my guys in the marathon is don't think of it as a marathon because at that stage your head, your race brain might explode. So break it into 4 by 10 kilometer chunks and just get to it, or a 5K, the next, and just think about 5Ks and get to the
I
next
do think
5K.
about it as 5Ks.
Yeah, next 5K, next
We
5K.
can all run a 5K. It's just another 5K.
That's it. And you go very good at
5K.
runner math. You go like, okay, right, so that's sort of how many 5Ks, and then you forget the rest. But it keeps the mind occupied and it keeps you moving forward. I presume it's all on concrete. There's nothing unusual at the surface. You don't go off road or anything unusual.
No, in the beginning, there's a little that's gravelly in the beginning. Like, if your friends and family are into gravel riding, they said there's a nice little path of gravel ride at the start of the marathon part. But for the most part, it's pavement.
Cool, excellent. And it looks like a lovely run. As you said, it'd be well supported. That would be an absolute noise center, I'd say there. Cool.
One thing I
Okay.
do want to mention, and this happened to me. So the temperatures are not, it generally is a cooler Ironman venue. And so if you think you're going to be out there past dark, when it does cool off, you may want to, again, you do get opportunity to have a special needs bag location. It's usually right between mile 13 and mile 18 of most courses to grab, and you have an extra set of warmer clothes, like a jacket. It might happen, it might cool off at night. And again, you should know the weather beforehand. I remember the year I did it, again, it rained on the bike, it rained on the run. Um, I felt a little chilly on the run, but they had ice baths. They had ice baths and they had warm baths at the end of
Oh,
Ironman
weird.
Canada the year I did it. I chose the warm bath because I was a little chilled. And just make sure you have warm clothing, especially after the race. You have warm clothing to put on afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be they're very good at taking care of you after the Ironman. Is when you cross the finish line, this big tent full of food and all the. I don't know about you, Andy, but when I finish my Ironman, I don't. My body doesn't know what it wants to do. As in, like I have a big sweet tooth, and it's the only time I don't actually feel like eating like donuts and cakes in front of me. I'm sort of going like I don't know what to eat. But
I always have a huge, and I like salads, but I'm so over the sweet stuff. I want nutrient dense salads because I don't eat salad 48 hours before a race. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
I limit my fiber consumption, and I'm used to having salad or vegetables every day. And so to not have them for 2 days, that's really all I want is nice nutrient dense salad.
You're way more healthy than I am. As in, like, one thing I do, I have this, and I don't eat fast food an awful lot, but I have a massive craving for McDonald's. And I
Uh-huh.
like McDonald's used to have as a kid, but never really have it since. But just when Ironman Barcelona, I had to find a McDonald's and get a Big Mac.
Yeah,
I hadn't eaten
I
a
believe
Big
it.
Mac for around 5 years beforehand, and it was just the best thing ever. But I couldn't unless it's only when I've done an Ironman that I want it. But
Yeah.
all ahead of the
I
guys.
want I want the crap the next day. I want all the crappy food the next day, but immediately I want the healthy stuff and then I want the crap.
Nice. Well, you deserve it as well, as in we've actually earned it. So it's 17 hours for the start to finish again. That's your swim, your T1, your bike, your T2, and your run time. It's a tough course, but it's very doable. Again, keeping eye on your pace, making sure you fuel, making sure you keep on top of was it your the weather elements as well and adjust accordingly. So
And speaking of cutoff, making sure because it's that rolling start, not everyone is starting at 7 a.m. and ending at midnight. If you start at 7:30, you have till 12:30. It's really important that you're keeping up with your own time.
Yeah, and again,
You know, too.
that's where the Garmin multi-sport mode is perfect on because it will give you your elapsed time, etc. So making
Yeah.
sure you're keeping an eye on it. Here's the finish line. I think I'm not too sure if this is the exact finish line for 2024, but it does look epic as usual. That's the red carpet. That's the reward for all your hard work, folks, and that's what you should be. I always have to think about the red carpet for the last 10K of the run because everything else is it's becoming just a big mental battle. And I'm going, okay, Stephen, just keep going, keep going. And the last 10K of a run, it always of a marathon, especially an Ironman, it just sucks. So there's no, I'm all about visualizing that point, and then also my McDonald's. That's what I visualize as well.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how good or how bad you may be experiencing, you know, that feeling that you're going to get during an Ironman, when you hit the red carpet, you just start, whether you're walking or running, you just start running faster, or you go
Yeah.
from a walk to a run. You see the finish line, there's a huge crowd, there's always huge crowd supports, and that's kind of what kind of drives you to keep going. It's really fun.
Yeah, and the Canadians are all into it. As in, like they're Penticton is very proud of its legacy, as you said, as a North American race and all the rest. So they will come out in the thousands to support. So so couple of other things we just got to talk. We've covered an awful lot. I hope again you're liking and subscribing to the channel. But there's some other kind of key things because Wendy's given some brilliant insights, some great tips that will really set you up for a race day success. Um, some other considerations we'd bear in mind. We've talked a bit about nutrition. Wendy's said that you should know what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat it when if you're not sure and you still got a bit of time to train, you should be doing that in your long bikes anyhow. So there's a video in the comments below that will talk through what you should consider about how, when, and was it how often you're going to actually eat, and what sort of calories you're going to have to take on board. We also you're going to have to pack for your Ironman. There's a video on what to pack and a handy downloadable checklist. And then also there will come to that you're looking forward to it, but at the same time, it's a strange phrase in a triathlete's life when you're tapering, you're convinced you're losing fitness, you're convinced you're catching the flu, you're convinced you're injured. You're not. It's just taper madness. We'll talk a bit about that and just some last minute tips in terms of get your bike serviced, make sure you pack your chargers. Don't know about you, Wendy, but every time I look in the forums, it's always someone going, "Has anyone got a Garmin charger? I'm up in hotel room number 202." Kind of like, that would stress the life out of me.
Or,
Um,
and I don't have DI2 shifters, but
yeah,
or it's a shifting. You know, people are like, "Oh my God, my shifters don't work. Does anyone have a shifting charger thing?" And then again, I don't know what they're talking about because I don't own one. But that's probably why I don't own DI shifters that I have to charge because I'd be the one to show up race day without them charged.
and
But
it's
yeah, having the checklist, checking it twice, knowing beforehand where the local bike shops are in
yes.
case you run into a bike mechanical issue that you need to go to the bike shop. Usually at the Ironman venue, they have that, but it could be busy. So just getting as many connections as you can. And again, being part of those Facebook groups sometimes has the benefit of posting in a Facebook group. Like my example is in 2022 when I went to Kona, I brought two right cycling shoes. And so I posted in the group, I'm looking for a left shoe, or I actually ended up going to Bike Works and buying a brand new pair of shoes. But thankfully, to help of a Facebook group, they directed me to the right place.
Is that like Cinderella goes to Kona? Is it? As in, like you forgot one of your slippers.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, no, absolutely. And again, also one of the thing I talk about is reading the race brief. That's going to come out soon. Make sure you do check over that. This video has been brilliant, but again, there might be some slight tweaks. Attend the athlete briefing, things that might change. In as Wendy correctly said, they might have some reason why they have to alter the bike route slightly on race day. Ironman is all about getting there as prepared as you can, but then adapting to whatever it throws at you at the day, and it will throw some spanners at you.
Mhm.
Um, okay, all right. So in terms of the race day timetable, and I don't know about you, Wendy, but I always try to get there. Like registration will open on Thursday, especially if I'm coming from Ireland to a North American race. I try to arrive possibly on the latest on the Wednesday, possibly on the Tuesday, just to give myself a bit of time. What's your go-to in terms of getting to a venue? Do you get there much earlier, or what do you do?
Yeah, for a destination race, I would get there on a probably Wednesday night. The race is Sunday, I recall. Most
Yes.
races are Sunday. For a Sunday race, Thursday at the absolute latest, I would get there. For a race like locally to me, Ironman Chattanooga, which is about a 2 hour drive from me, I'll drive in on Friday for a Sunday race. But Ironman Canada is at quite the distance, and there's a time change, and you want to acclimate your body to the time difference, and you don't want to miss out. You don't want to have FOMO. You want to get there when all the events are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And things will go wrong, especially if you are throwing your bike on the plane or you're doing travel, things will get delayed. And you just want to give yourself time to fix whatever mini disaster Ironman will throw at you the day before. Like you take your bike out and the brakes are rubbing or the derailleur slightly bent. You'll have to get to a bike store, have to find a bike store like you did and get it fixed. But if you're doing that and you've only got one day to sort it out, the amount of stress and the amount of energy that's going to drain you before your Ironman race,
Yeah.
disaster. So, and again, people have put bare minimum 6 months, 9 months, 12 months of training into this race. Take an extra day. And also, as you said, Wendy, there's loads of cool people hanging around. It's almost our triathlon community like just on speed because it's just everyone's there, everyone's excited, everyone's wearing their Ironman gear. There's a sense of electricity around the place, and Ironman feeds into that. They're very good at the spectacle. Like I know there's other long distance races that aren't Ironman branded, but they don't have that razzmatazz. The Iron Kids race, the merch tent, and like all the names on the wall, all these little things, they just get you excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Get there early.
Cool. So, as I said, you can start registering on Thursday and you can do that on Friday. It's not available on Saturday with the Sunday race, so make sure you bear that in mind. There's athlete briefings at 11 and 2. These are based on last year's timetable, so again, check the athlete brief to make sure that these haven't changed. Do attend them because things can get slightly tweaked. The bike and transition check-in is on the Saturday. As Wendy correctly pointed out at the very start of the video, you have to check in them the night before. We've talked about transition bags, and don't panic if you haven't got, if you when you register here, you don't get a timing ship. You only get that when you check in the bike. And when you're doing that as well, you need to have your helmet on to make sure it's working properly.
Well, and
Right.
let me throw in there at over the last couple of years, they now will email the participants, and the participants sign up for a time slot when they're going to register, a time slot for when they're going to check their gear in.
Yep, no, absolutely. And also
So
another
so
key
it
thing
takes
is
the
that
guesswork out of everything. You already know you're checking your gear in at 1 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
yeah, no, absolutely. And adhere to that as much as possible because it means otherwise everyone will just try to put it in the very end, and that just it's unfair on volunteers and it's also unfair on your fellow competitors. And also another thing, you will have your quick QR code that will be part of your registration. Make sure that you have that accessed on your smartphone, etc., because they'll scan that and that has all your details. Race morning, transition opens at 5. Rolling age group starts as Wendy described about that rolling start starts at 6:35, and then you're off in the beautiful countryside of Canada having the race of your life. So we hope you found that very useful. I think myself and Wendy, thank you very, very much for having this conversation with me. It's actually been brilliant to have someone as knowledgeable as yourself listening and wasn't sharing all these with all the newbies or people looking for PBs. But I think also we're happy enough to take any questions as well. If people think about something afterwards, they want to email us. Here's our contact details here. So it's info at smartandjournalism.com. It's T to Coach Wendy at Gmail. And we'll be more than happy to take any questions and just kind of make the connection with you guys who are part of our cool Ironman community.
Yeah, thank
Wendy,
you.
any other last minute tips or anything else for the gang?
I think, we're the race is August 26th. Plenty of time to come up with your own pacing plan, your own nutrition plan. If you haven't practiced, you need to practice. And so before the race, if you have everything written out, what your plan is, and then what your plan B and plan C are in case plan A doesn't go right. And also, as you're creating your plan, your pacing, nutrition, and mental strategies, prepare for something to go wrong, like a flat tire. What are you going to do? You're going to change it? You're going to wait for someone to come by and help you. I had a broken chain in Ironman Coeur d'Alene 2008. Broken chain, you don't carry chains to fix. And it took about 25 minutes from the time the official saw me, called into the bike mechanic, for the bike mechanic to get there and put a new chain on my bike. I lost about 25 minutes. And so, there's prepare for things to go wrong and how you're going to handle it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's don't catastrophize, as my friend says, as in things will go wrong. Some of these small, and some might have just take a little bit of a goal readjustment, and have your A, B, and C goals. But as you said, if this, don't panic. You solution as you go, and that's part of the Ironman experience. You might drop your nutrition. That's not a big deal because you know that whatever the next aid stations and in 20 kilometers, you might get a flat. Ideally, you can fix it. Are you waiting on motor support? The weather might change. Adapt, overcome, keep moving. I suppose that could
Yeah.
be the next Ironman motto.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool. All right, Wendy, again, thank you absolutely a million for doing this. It's been great. And again, there's our details if people want to get in touch. And hopefully you have an absolute great race in Canada.
Yeah, race it like you trained it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you.